Hi children, welcome to my English class. Today we would read the poem The Secret of Machines deals with the problem of modern technology and automation. Before we start, let's acknowledge the poet's information. Rudyard Kipling was born on December 30, 1865 in Bombay, India. He was educated in England but returned to India in 1882. A decade later, Kipling married Caroline Balestier and settled in Brattleboro, Vermont, where he wrote The Jungle Book in 1894, among a host of other works that made him hugely successful. Kipling was the recipient of the 1907 Nobel Prize in Literature. He died in 1936. Let us now understand the poem stanza-wise. First stanza. We were taken from the ore bed and the mine. We were melted in the furnace and the pit. We were cast and wrought and hammered to design. We were cut and filed and tooled and gauged to fit. In the first stanza, the poet highlights the way machines are shaped and how they are managed. The raw material, iron ore and minerals for machines are taken from the ores and mines accordingly. They were further melted in the blast furnace and in the mine. Metals were melted and turned into various designs using the hammer to be fashioned. They were also cut into different sizes and measured fit according to the required weight. Second stanza. Some water, coal, and oil is all we ask, and 1/1000th of an inch to give us play. And now, if you will set us to our task, we will serve you 24 hours a day. Second stanza states that the only requirement for the machine is water, coal, and oil. The moving parts may have a clearance of 1/1000th of an inch, which may be permissible variation from the required dimensions. These parts are closely arranged with bolts and nuts, leaving only less than an inch for the movement of wheels. With such a setup, the machines are willing to work round the clock non-stop without any rest. Third stanza. We can pull and howl and push and lift and drive. We can print and plow and weave and heat and light. We can run and race and swim and fly and dive. We can see and hear and count and read and write. In the third stanza, the machines elucidate how they can serve human race by doing all the possible human activities mastered by machines. They say they can do various tasks such as pulling, carrying, pushing, lifting, driving, printing, ploughing, weaving, heating, lighting, mining, racing, swimming, flying, diving, seeing, hearing, counting, reading, and writing. Fourth stanza. But remember, please, the law by which we live. We are not built to comprehend a lie. We can neither love nor pity nor forgive. If you make a slip in handling us, you die. The machines in the fourth stanza caution the readers with an unshakable moral imperative, the law by which it jives. The machines represent a form of absolute truth that is particularly difficult for mankind to understand. Here, machines tells us that they don't emote nor understand different feelings such as love, pity, or apology. It reiterates its dangerous nature by simply stating that a slip while handling it means instant death. Fifth stanza. Though our smoke may hide the heavens from your eyes, it will vanish and the stars will shine again. Because for all our power and weight and size, we are nothing more than children of your brain. So in the last stanza, the design of the machine just changes. The dream of the perfect machinery suddenly seems to fade out. Machines aren't perfect. Nature always wins over. Machines aren't miraculous creations, but just a creation of the human brain. Therefore, machines, although capable of great deeds, are still nothing more than creations of the human brain. Thus, children, machines cannot replace humans. Though they are powerful and efficient, they lack feelings like love, pity, and forgiveness. So, moral of the poem is You can't make a machine in the likeness of human mind. Thank you.